and welcome to yet another edition of The Social Network. I'm Rishika Barua. Hashtag Omicron has been trending globally all week, and I'm sure just like me, you are all inundated with, quote-unquote facts about Omicron. A lot of us are receiving these as WhatsApp forwards. A lot of us are seeing these on our social media timelines. So on the show today, we'll first have a panel of experts to decipher the facts from the myths. We look at some of the most common myths that are doing the round, whether it is on WhatsApp or on your social media timelines, and then we'll bring you the facts. Also on the show today, 2021's most hackable passwords. Is yours on that list? Well, you will find out in just a bit. But first, I want to introduce our panel this evening as we talk about Omicron. Dr. Isaac Bogoch, infectious diseases physician and scientist based out of the University of Toronto. He's also very active himself on social media. Dr. Shashank Joshi, member of the COVID-19 task force in Maharashtra. He's also somebody who's very active on social media. Thank you both very much for joining us. Dr. Isaac, I want to begin by asking you about some of the most common things that are being said on social media and some of the things that we've received on WhatsApp, which really need clarification. I think the disclaimer here is don't believe everything you read about coronavirus or Omicron, on social media. The first being that Omicron is a farce. It's a hype. It's something that is just being created in thin air. How would you respond?
Yeah, so I agree with your statement about don't agree or don't believe everything you see on social media. I think that's a very wise words to live by. Obviously, this is not a farce. This Omicron variant was first detected in Southern Africa by some very astute scientists in South Africa and Botswana, and it has now been detected in every continent around the world with the exception of Antarctica. It's not just travel-related cases. There are also cases that have been locally acquired well outside of African settings, something to definitely watch out for. We don't have all the answers, that's for sure, but it's appropriate to take a cautious approach while scientists around the world start to figure out what exactly this means.
Right. Dr. Joshi, this is something that has actually, been doing the rounds on WhatsApp, that Omicron is less severe than Delta and therefore we needn't worry. Now, something similar has actually been reiterated by the health authorities here as well, saying that given our seropositivity, our vaccination rate here in India, perhaps Omicron could be less severe. But can we say that for certain? Can we say that for certain that Omicron is going to be less severe than Delta?
No, I think it's a work in progress and it's under investigation. So I think let us not dismiss the WHO concern that it's a variant of concern. It is possible that it may be less severe, and let us hope and pray, but it could go either way. And whenever the pandemic, a new strain comes, the early data which comes in is always mild. So let's not get carried away by that and become complacent. I think it is a serious strain worthy of being labeled as variant of concern. And therefore, though mild cases are there have been reportage of moderate cases. There is a 20-fold increase in oxygenation. No ICU increase has happened, but it is very, very early date. So I think it is premature to make that supposition. There is no need to be panicky. At the same time, we should be cautious, careful, and we should follow our COVID appropriate protocol. Double mask, it's an airborne droplet virus, and please be cautious. And remember, the one concerning feature is it could have reinfection. So though whatever we have in India is Delta, and we have a large exposure naturally, and we have hybrid immunity because of double vaccination, we still need to be cautious. COVID is very much around, so is coronavirus, and therefore don't be dismissive, stating it's just a mild issue and there's nothing to panic.
Right.
There is a cause of concern, and we may not panic. We don't have to go overboard. We don't have to get paranoid. At the same time, we cannot forget COVID appropriate behavior and protocols.
All right. I think those are words to live by as well. Dr. Bogoch, would you agree? We have about over 300 cases all over the world. What more is really known about the severity?
Yeah, we don't. We don't know anything about the severity. You've got to be very careful with these early reports. I mean, they're anecdotal. Now, of course, you can never ignore the anecdotes. We just have to put them in the appropriate context and appreciate that they're anecdotes. It's not meaningful data. I think it's fair to say that we really just know that there are mutations on this particular variant that may make this variant behave in a concerning manner. It may be more transmissible. It might chip away at some of the immunity that we've developed either through vaccination or through recovery from infection. We have to appreciate that that might be a possibility because we don't actually have a lot of meaningful real world data or experience with this. It's appropriate to proceed with caution in the coming days and weeks until we learn more about this.
Yes. Dr. Joshi, another myth perhaps, or one of the things that's doing the rounds is that Omicron will not lead to hospitalizations given the fact that a large number of people have, especially here in India, have already been infected with COVID, they've already had COVID, or they have 1 or 2 doses of the vaccine. What more do we know about hospitalizations right now?
So hospitalization in South Africa have clearly doubled up. So hospitalizations may still be possible. ICU admissions have not gone up. But it is early indicators. But there are dark clouds round the corner. Let us only hope and pray that this storm passes away and it's a false alarm. We are okay with that. But right now it's an alarm. And we don't know whether it's true or false. So when there is an unknown, as Dr. Isaac said, we need to be cautious and careful. So also don't feel complacent about it. Be careful and cautious. Don't make all these myths as excuses not to follow masking or not taking your vaccine on time.
But, Dr. Bogarts, the other question here is, don't a lot of these things that one reads on social media also feed into the larger point of COVID fatigue? It's been 2 years that we've been living in a pandemic. Of course, the news of the new variant, what we're seeing happen in South Africa has raised cause for caution once again. But, in a lot of countries, for instance, a mask mandate has been lifted after people were double vaccinated. So, how do we deal with the information that we're getting on social media in the light of the fact that it's in a certain sense feeding into our own sense of fatigue?
I don't have a good answer for you here, unfortunately, because it's obviously an extremely challenging question that's likely involves a global coordinated effort and a multifactorial approach. Multiple things can be true. COVID fatigue is real. It is. And people are sick and tired of this. The other thing that's true is this pandemic isn't over, no matter how much we want or wish it to be over. We're getting there. We're in the vaccine era, and the vaccines are incredibly helpful. But we need to do better to ensure global equity and access to vaccines and improve vaccine uptake, given the hesitancy we're seeing, largely driven by misinformation and disinformation campaigns. And then again, we have very simple, easy measures that, of course, are not perfect, but are helpful, like wearing a mask in an indoor setting, like improving ventilation in indoor settings. Like, again, that's not going to end the pandemic, but you can all see them as helpful pieces to a much larger puzzle to really create safer environments. So there's lots that we can be doing, but honestly, I don't know how to tackle that issue of pandemic fatigue, because quite frankly, there's probably about 8 billion people on planet Earth who are experiencing it right now.
Right.
We all want this to be over. We just can't act as if it's over because it's going to come around to bite us if we do.
Dr. Joshi, the same narrative here in India as well. We are going into election season right now. And people say that, if there can be large crowds at political rallies, then why should there be an air of caution around weddings, for instance? So it is, in a certain sense, feeding into the COVID fatigue.
So you are absolutely right. We need to be resilient. Restlessness should not lead to recklessness. That could be very deleterious. At the same time, people tend to be rebellious and revengeful. And that has been very deeply illustrated. But at the same time, I think we need to be cautious. The second wave memories are very palpable and visible. And they have seen a very, very bad storm in India. There is no person in India who has not lost a family member, either in friend and family. So I think people still need to be a little more cautious. And I don't think we have any scope for recklessness, revenge, or rebellion in our minds. We need to be resilient and strong. I understand it is very easy for all of us to say this on television, but all of us, including doctors, we are also tired. But at the same time, we can't let our guard down.
Absolutely.
Because we have to be responsible. So I think the 2 key R's are be responsible and be resilient. And, still there is, positive hope at the end of the day.
Yes. And one of the other myths that I really want to address is about vaccines. Now, there is a lot that is being written and said about vaccinations. And this was, Dr. Bogach, really sparked, when Moderna came out very early on after the news of Omicron and said that we are going to develop a vaccine specifically for Omicron. This sparked both sides of the debate that existing vaccines are not going to work against Omicron, or, many who believe that no, these vaccines will indeed work. So what is, the fact about the COVID-19 vaccine as we know currently against Omicron?
You know what would be amazing is if we could all just take a collective deep breath in, relax, and exhale, right? Science takes a bit of time. These are answerable questions. We will have the answers to those questions in the coming weeks. Rather than have wild speculation and then inflame it on social media, let's listen to the scientists, not the CEOs of companies, and we'll get the answers to this. Now, there's wild speculation and then there's informed speculation. Here's a little bit of informed speculation. It would be extremely unlikely and unusual for a variant to emerge out of the blue that completely erases the protective benefit of vaccines.
Right.
We're likely to see some chipping away at the protective immunity of vaccines, but that hasn't been quantified just yet. We'll learn more in the weeks ahead. It's wonderful that we live in the vaccine era where we can modify these vaccines in real time and mass produce them. We don't even know if that's necessary. Let's see what the current vaccines do. Let's see if booster vaccines provide additional improvement or additional protection. Let's be prepared that we might need to have updated vaccines, but I think we also need to proceed in, a data-driven manner and in a cautious manner, not in a haphazard panic manner.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, don't listen to CEOs, listen to scientists. And I think that holds true for information that you're consuming on social media as well. It's important to check the veracity and verification of the individual that you're consuming that information from as well. Lastly, I want to ask this to you, Dr. Joshi, because we dealt with this here in India when the Delta variant started. It was being called the Indian variant and it upset us. Now, Omicron is being called the South African variant.
I think we need to be very mindful. We live in a global village and we cannot, geographically delineate any country. I think it is a collective global village and we have to ensure that every person on planet Earth gets dual vaccinated. I agree with Dr. Isaac completely that we know precious little about vaccines. We are scientists, and when we know precious little, all vaccines save lives. That's clear cut, including Omicron. I can say that with my last breath because they are all immunotherapeutic and they save severe disease in most of the people. So there will always be exceptions because in public health, the decisions are taken for most of the people most of the times. I think to call a particular variant with a geographic origin is not appropriate, which is why WHO used Greek alphabets. But even over there, a controversy broke out that Omicron is not the next Greek alphabet because there was a new, which was very common term. There was a Xi, which has an ethnic sensitivity. But be mindful that, remember, we don't know whether it came from South Africa at all. It could have come from elsewhere. Only South Africa had a better method of diagnosing it. We should congratulate those scientists. Not, they have done an exceptional job, and even their current management strategies may be absolutely in place. So we are learning from them. I think it is not appropriate to say that it is a variant coming from a particular geography. Yes, some geographies will have particular variations. Currently, Delta is the most dominant variant on planet Earth, and that is the exact reason World Health Organization has named them on Greek alphabets, so that we are mindful of the sensitivities of human beings at large. But we are in a global village. We have to collaborate. We have to look at vaccine equity. We have to give vaccines to every human being on planet Earth, and everyone should wear masks. COVID is still around, and we still need to be smiling and positive about it.
Well, trust me, I've just scratched the surface of the amount of misinformation that there is on social media, but I sincerely hope this conversation has been useful to our viewers, and just consume the material that you will with certain filters on social media. Thank you both very much for sparing your time and being with us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
All right, moving on. According to a new research report by NordPass, the most commonly used password around the globe is, guess what? Well, it is 123456. The second most commonly used password is 12345678 The third most commonly used password is 11111. Now, all of these passwords can be cracked in under 1 second, and we're putting out a detailed list of India's most hackable passwords and the world's most hackable passwords. In India, these passwords include, again, the digits, the 1, 2, 3, 4, going all the way up to 9, India 1, 2, 3, QWERTY, Krishna and Om Sai Ram. These are some of the most commonly used passwords in India. Now, this list was compiled from 50 countries in partnership with independent researchers specializing in research of cyber security incidents. Now, I'm sure what you see on your screens will interest you, but 4 TB of data has actually been analyzed to put this list together. And if your password is on that list that we're putting out on our screens, then you're definitely not taking cyber security or cyber theft seriously. At least that's what I've been told, but I'm not the expert. So let's ask the experts what this list essentially means for cyber security and cyber theft. While some of these facts may be interesting, there is a story behind it. Gerald Kasulis of NordPass, the head of business and channel NordSec, joins us. Thanks very much, Gerald, for being with us. And we also have Shweta Chawla, founder and chief investigator, SC Cyber Solutions. Thank you, Shweta, for being with us as well. But Gerald, I want to ask you a question that I was asked. Did you actually go ahead and hack passwords to know that they can be hacked in under 1 second? Take us through the backstory of this list we're putting out on our screens.
It's a great question. Well, the list itself is being compiled by us, but the data is being, obviously, as you rightfully said so as well, being used by independent researchers that specialize in researching cybersecurity incidents. So pretty much this is just compiling the data that's actually available on the dark web also, that people could actually access passwords of other people. And the size of that list was actually enormous, 4 terabytes of data. And as you can imagine how tiny the password is, so you can also have an idea how many passwords have been evaluated.
Well, it does, give us a good sense of how many passwords you've evaluated, because that list actually runs into 200 passwords. We've just put out, some of the top interesting passwords as far as India is concerned, and globally we've put out the top 10. But, it's interesting because it's not just about the interest around the most commonly used passwords. Shweta, this is a worrying list. Given how easily and how quickly a lot of these passwords, a majority of them, can actually be hacked in under 1 second.
True, it's very worrying because most people, in fact, I ran a poll with a few of my associates, and we found that at least 70% of people do not change their passwords for a number of years. Which means that they have passwords like this, which they retain on multiple sites over the period of years, knowing the password can be hacked in something less than a second. And websites also, social media sites, at least the most popular social media email sites, are very particular about their password security. But a lot of the websites don't put restrictions that you need to have a password of a specific length, a specific character pattern, a specific bunch of symbols, numbers put together. So people get away with passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
And we've been seeing that for at least 10 years that I know now.
But Gerald, explain to us, a lot of people believe that I have nothing on my social media that can be incriminating or damaging. So, why go through the hassle of updating and changing my Twitter password or my Facebook password or my Instagram password? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, that's what we come in at NordPass, trying to re-educate people. And we used to be the same, right? Where we try to just have a password. We believe that we don't store sensitive data. And social media, remember, that's only one type of the login platform that we use. By hackers accessing your passwords, a lot of times we reuse the same passwords, or hacker could potentially get your name from your social media with a password and access your pictures and analyze the data there. And then from there, it could actually escalate. It could go into your banking logins, it could social security number. So social identity theft, it's a huge factor, especially in the US, for instance. And we need to remember that if this did not happen to me yet, I shouldn't be in a position not to make changes and make sure it doesn't happen. So we need to make sure we change the habits accordingly.
Okay, well, we need to make sure we change habits, and there are also social media sites and intermediaries that ensure that passwords are changed. Shweta, what more needs to be done at that level? You know, do the most popular social networking sites, for instance, do they need to mandate a password change, require a mandatory password change every now and then? How frequently should this happen?
It would be lovely if they could mandate a security change, a password change. It's been something we've been hoping will be implemented every year on end. But it is something that the users are not very happy with. People hate changing passwords. People hate keeping different passwords for different things. The usual logic is, how am I supposed to remember 20 passwords, 30 passwords? And then you want me to change them every 2 months, 2 weeks, 1 month. It's just not possible. And we recommend people use password managers. But ironically, people don't trust password managers. And that is, like I said, it's just ironic. Because the entire point of a password manager, sorry, may I finish?
Yes, please.
Yeah, the entire point of a password manager is to remind you to change your passwords frequently and to help you keep unique passwords.
Okay, so try and use that password manager perhaps. But really, Gerald, what's the hack here? How do you get people to change passwords? Often scare us with, you know, the potential of your password being leaked. What happens if your password is leaked, and why, and how often should one typically be changing passwords?
Great questions. So obviously we touched on a password management solution, and password management solution offers those capabilities for you. So you don't need to think for yourself, analyze, okay, when was the last time I've changed my Facebook password or whatnot. Password manager will be able to analyze the data within your vault where you store all the passwords, and then give you updates. How many weak passwords you have, how many passwords you're reusing, and how old the passwords are, and then give you a notification, for instance, just to remind you to change the passwords. So that's a huge benefit of that. And in terms of kind of getting into the password management for users, I think we need to be cautious of the statistics going around the world. We've been compiling this list for 3 years in a row. And the purpose of us actually compiling the list is not to scare people. It's actually to educate and show, look, this is the current environment. It doesn't work. And we want to make sure that everyone understands that, including every country around the globe.
Well, absolutely. And all the fun facts aside, like what both Gerald and Shweta have said, that there are some very serious cyber theft and cyber security implications of your password being leaked. So we hope this conversation has been useful, and thank you both very much for joining us on The Social Network. Well, speaking of cyber security, privacy, Twitter's now got a new privacy policy in place, and some of the features of that policy entail a ban on sharing images, videos of private individuals without their consent. In fact, sharing of private documents like government IDs has also been banned, and Twitter has promised that they will take action against any explicit, abusive content that is shared without consent. This policy, interestingly though, at the moment doesn't apply to public figures or tweets that are used in public interest. Twitter has said that they will remove tweets or permanently suspend repeat offenders. Now, it's not just Twitter. This week, even Meta has put in a new plan to empower and protect women. Meta has launched something called StopNCII.org. This is important, StopNCII.org. You can log on to that website. And this is also done in a bid to curb sharing images without consent. Now, this Stop NCII website allows users to search and remove unauthorized images. The website generates something which is like a unique hash value or a code, you can say, on your device, which ensures that an image never leaves your device. This is currently available in 11 Indian languages. So these are the two new features that have been introduced by Twitter and Meta this week. That's all the time we have on The Social Network.